today's session. Camilla is the co-chair of the group, and as some of you know, she's got a newborn baby, so she was trying to join today, but this hour with a newborn is, I think I remember, it's like the witching hour. They go crazy at this time of day, so she is not gonna make it today, but she says hello. So I think we'll just get started by all going around and introducing ourselves, say what you're drinking tonight, since it is wine and webinars, and then Anne and I were talking, and it'd be really helpful for her to hear from everyone what you're hoping to get out of today's session. So she really wants to cater it to what we want to hear today. So thank you. So yeah, we'll go around and do introductions, and then I'll introduce our speaker a little bit more. But I am Amy Kane. I am the Vice President of Education, Safety, and Operations at Associated Builders and Contractors of Georgia. I am drinking a cupcake Sauvignon Blanc. I wish I was drinking a red wine that was warm because I'm freezing too, but this was open in my fridge, so I went for it. And I am excited for today's session. I was thinking about this, Anne. So for me, I used to work at a large association where we had our whole, and I told you this a little bit, Anne, too, but we had our whole government affairs department, and I definitely felt like it was not part of my job. That was just what they do, and I really didn't know what they did. But now I'm at ABC, and there's just 6 of us staff, and it is a lot more important for me to have a role in what we do. So I'm excited to kind of learn how I can play an active role in our government affairs. So I'll just call people out to go next. I guess that's the best way to do it. I see Jenny in my top left corner. So Jenny, go.
Hey, I'm Jenny Thomas. I'm Director of Membership and Communications with GSAE. Thank you all for being here. One of the things that I would be curious about is how COVID has just affected the whole landscape, and a lot of groups used to do fly-ins. What do they do now instead of that because of COVID? Yeah. Oh, and I'm drinking water. I'm boring. So.
Val.
Hi, I'm Val. I'm with the Georgia Chiropractic Association. I am drinking a Cabernet Sauvignon, and it's quite good. One of my vendors gave it to me at our conference a few weeks ago. It's very, very nice. I'm looking for a number of things. I think just recently decided that we were not going to have our Capitol Day. We just lobby at the state Capitol. And so I'm looking for some ideas to connect with legislators without actually being there in person. And also just kind of some general ideas. We have a lobbyist. I go about once a week, but he is so crazy and busy and running around all the time. He doesn't have a lot of time to kind of teach me the ropes. So I'm always interested in learning what other people do.
Awesome. Kara?
I'm Kara Bastarak with ACR, Senior Specialist for Certification. I don't have my drink here. This is actually my first wine and webinar, so I'm going to have my husband bring me something here in a minute. But as far as the government relations, I think it's really interesting to me how different associations can kind of form alliances when it comes to government relations. So I'm interested in learning about how some of that plays out.
So Mary?
Hey, Mary Wheatley. I'm the Executive Director of the Rheumatology Research Foundation. So I work with Kara and have worked with Amy. I'm really interested. We are a C3 foundation affiliated with a C6 association. And so we don't do any lobbying, but a lot of our case for support for the foundation, we share it with our colleagues on the C6 side for their advocacy efforts, and obviously have a shared mission. And so interested how that relates to others' efforts as well, and anything we can do to support those efforts further.
Bill?
I'm Bill Anderson with ABC. I work with Amy in our office of 6, and I'm definitely here for the wine as well. It's a cab, so it's warming me up. So actually, I didn't know this was wine and webinars. I just always drink wine at this hour, so it doesn't really matter. So, but anyway, it's interesting because ABC is very active and politically involved at the federal level, and then involved too at the state level. I mean, it's a small tech lobbyist, but I look around the office and there's no one in our office on staff that has governmental affairs in their title. So, you know, we do have to all pitch in. And just one example is these Senate races are very important to the ABC world. And so all the ABC chapters and nationals is looking at Georgia and saying, hey, Bill, what are y'all going to be doing? And they're going to be sending some people down. And literally this morning, I had to pull in like 3 of my other staff. And we had to kind of have a stand-up meeting to talk about how everybody's going to help out with this. And this is our marketing and events manager. She's got to help out. Our office manager, she's got to help out. Our membership person, she's got to help out. And Amy was in a class, but otherwise, I mean, she would have been in that meeting too. So I just kind of want to hear about everybody's thoughts about how to do that. So.
Great. Damien?
I am Damien. I am drinking a wine from Kentucky that was distilled into Basil Hayden rye. I mixed it with a little ice and Topo Chico. But it has the basics of wine, except no grapes and nobody stomped on them or pressed them. But thrilled to be here. My group is also not a lobbying group, but the industry that I support has been wants to stay out of the news more than be in the news, and there are several things with the CARES Act and a variety of other things like that that have brought my groups into high relief. So I'm looking for deeper knowledge, information about the process to perhaps keep us as an industry out of the news.
Lisa Marie.
Hey, I'm Lisa Marie, and I am with the Cherokee County Educational Foundation. That's the nonprofit that supports efforts to fundraise for excellence in public education in our school district up here in Cherokee County. I am deeply impacted by COVID because, much like Damien, we don't want to be in the news. We can't help but be on the news. Our high schoolers love to hang on to each other and take pictures without masks. It's impacted our family directly this week. My daughter, who teaches 5th grade here at Carmel Elementary School, was diagnosed yesterday morning with COVID. And she is the 4th teacher on her hall to fall. So somewhere in the 5th grade, we have a student who feels great, just keeps coming and sharing the love with everybody else. So the numbers are really, really, I don't know if it's just because it's impacted our family directly, but the numbers are certainly on the rise. And while I'm hearing all of these numbers rising in what we're dealing with at the school level, I, in my job role, I serve as the vice president for the Republican Party here in my county. And I'm sure if you watch the news, we're sure to make the news before the week's out too. They let us know that they were planning a rally for our senators, and Vice President Pence is coming. And Lisa Marie, we need you to pull together this space. And there's not a lot of spaces in Cherokee County. There's certainly no safe way to do that. No one asks you if it's a good idea. They just let you know that they're coming, and then you have to pick up the pieces and throw together an event. So with great trepidation, I'm confident I'll be on the news before the weekend's out. And so there's a lot that goes into planning these events. There's a lot that needs to change in light of the situation. And I'm hoping that we can hear some great things and collaborate together. I would like to tell you all that I just opened a bottle of wine. It's called Walla Walla Valley Malbec, and it's by Dave Harvey Wines. The reason I'm telling you this is because it comes from a wine club called Naked Wines, and they sent me an email this week that I can give promotional $100 gift certificates to people. So if you guys will follow up and send me an email after this, I will send you the links and you can try their wine club. I think it's all really good wine. It's not great wine, but it's really good wine, and it's perfect for the days that we're living in when you go through 2 and 3 bottles, and the third one's just as good as the first. So I'll be happy to send that to you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa Marie. All right, Wendy, say hello.
After I unmute myself, I'm Wendy Kavanaugh, CAE, and I am now so warm in my office, I'm going to turn my camera off so that I can bend down and turn the heater off. Anne was supposed to come and see us in Savannah. And so I'm delighted that all of you get a chance to meet her before Chattanooga, which will hopefully go forward. We don't know yet. But my interest in the legislation has always come from the federal level because we work so closely with ASAE's public policy department to get information out to you guys. So I'm really interested though, because Anne has expertise on both the state and the federal level. And so I'm just, you can talk about either one, Anne, and I'm all in.
Thanks, Wendy.
Oh, and I'm absolutely drinking red wine out of a Boda box.
That's what I
Proudly.
usually drink, Wendy.
Julia?
I am Julia Boyd, Director of Certification for Professional Photographers of America. I love now too that in 2020 we talk about wine in just terms of bottles. Like it's not like a glass or like, it's just like bottles of wine. I am drinking a Willamette Pinot Noir. Lovely. And I think today, so we do on the national level, we are actually working on copyright legislation right now with photographers that we've been working on honestly for a decade, but have really ramped up in the past 2 to 3 years because we were hopefully close to actually getting it passed. But I think what I'm also interested in is we've been doing a lot of grassroots with our membership, trying to get them to send letters and using some software. But now that we're in like almost the 3rd year of this, how to keep your members engaged and keep sending those letters when, you know, all else is falling apart. So trying to like keep your membership engaged with ongoing efforts that can sometimes span years, maybe decades.
Yep,
All right.
that problem.
And Tip.
I'm Tip Tucker Kendall. I'm the Director of Member Services for the International Society of Arboriculture. So our members are arborists and folks who take care of trees. We are a C5, so we're an agricultural entity. So a little odd. We don't directly lobby, but this year has been one where we've had to dip our toe in the water of advocacy because our members obviously were not, no one was quite sure whether they were going to be considered essential employees or not. And so that we found ourselves in a position of not being able to lobby, but trying to work with our partner organizations to make sure that every state and province, actually we're in 37 countries and all 50 states and all the provinces of Canada. So we were working pretty fearlessly back in March to make sure that our members could continue making a living during this time. And that was a big issue. And the other thing that we work on with government relations is with Small Business Administration and trying to reclassify our arborists properly. And right now they're classified as a grounds person. And what arborists do is a very specific professional designation that the government just hasn't quite recognized yet. So those are some projects we're working on. And while we don't kind of carry the flag, it's sort of a group effort to see some of these changes. But I certainly saw my chapters this year have to, for the first time ever, take on a more advocacy role in their specific states. And that threw them a little bit for a loop. So I've have had to kind of nurture those folks and guide them, and I know nothing. So that's why I'm here.
Can we just talk about what a cool name Tip is? Is it short for a bigger name? It's such a cute name and it fits you. So I don't even know you. And I'm like, what a great name. That landed perfectly.
Yeah, there's no good story, but I've been Tip since I was 8, so it's all I know. But yes, I do have, it's not my official name, but I only write that name when I sign my checks and my taxes.
It's a great name.
Thank you.
So Amy, before you introduce, so that Jenny does not completely kill me, can we please everybody smile at the camera and
Do we cheers?
Tip literally, do I need to count down for you? Okay, we're gonna go 3, 2, 1. Everybody smile. Got it.
Great. All right. Oh yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. So last but not least is you, Anne. So I'll let you maybe just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what you're drinking as well before you dig in.
Thank you all. And I've taken notes, so I'm going to try and get to everybody's questions, but there was nothing here that didn't sound familiar to me, so that's good. I'm Anne Darconti. I am a senior advisor for Hill Staffer, which is a government relations consulting firm based out of Washington, but also I run our state practice, and we are based, and the state practice here, we're based out of, I'm based out of Raleigh, but handle stuff all over the country. And I do have a federal as well as a state and a local background in government relations. I've been at this for 30 years. So yes, I started when I was 10. I am drinking a Chardonnay. Whatever was in the fridge is what I'm drinking. And as I was telling some of the Wendy and Jenny and Amy before the others came on, I actually am heading to a wine tasting after this is over this evening. So.
She's pre-gaming with us.
Yes. So what I want to start out to do is, I think what I'm going to do is, based on what I heard, there's a couple of particular roles in this call that I want to make sure that I address, because I think that that's what's really important. The point I'm trying to get through here today is that government relations is everyone's job. It's not just that government relations team if you work at a big national association. And I've been at those big national associations, and I've been at the small associations, and now I represent clients on both sides of those sizes, and some that are more proactive than others, some that are more reactive than others, some that find themselves in the defensive posture, some that find themselves in an offensive posture. But there is no one way, no cookie cutter approach to doing this. And I think that that's one of the most important things that you take away. So let me start off by giving you a little bit of information about GR, and I'm going to kind of call this the who, what, why, when, how, and why. And I'm not going to do it in that order, but I'm going to talk about why government relations. And for some of the organizations, you mentioned that you're not C6s, but you're C3s, so you're charitable. So of course you have to limit by law what you can do to maintain your tax exempt status. I am a CAE also, so I kind of got that same GR education that you all got, which is, so little. It's barely the tip of the iceberg. But there's a lot more to it. But one of the things I'm sure all of you took away was that as a C3, don't want to expand, don't want to do too much GR. It'll get you in trouble with IRS. But GR basically is a tool that can be used to, protect, advance, support, enhance, and positively position your profession or industry in the public policy arena. And it's a tool that can help you fulfill strategic goals for your organization. Because in my mind, if your GR is not related to your government, to your organization's strategic goals, then it's like anything else, you're wasting your time and energy. Now, that's not to say that you're working towards your strategic goals and using all the other tools that you know of. But if you're not using advocacy and GR, I would suggest that you think about ways that you could do it. And that's a lot of what today is about. So what is GR? GR basically is a key association function. And most of you know, well, I didn't hear anybody in membership, but advocacy and government relations is actually one of the main reasons that people join associations. And the irony is that sometimes that is not necessarily professed and advertised as a great member value, but it is a member value and it's often a very large selling point. GR allows you to influence legislation, regulations, and even judicial proceedings. And it allows you to do that in such a way at either the local, the state, the federal, or even the international levels. And what I would say too is that when you have an association membership doing GR, you have the benefit of increasing your ability to succeed because you have strength in numbers and because you also have a wider breadth of coverage. And what I mean by that is the issue of the power of constituency. And that is what grassroots is really about. That is what grass tops is really about. Because I can tell you, I've worked the federal, I've worked the state, I've worked the local. And I can't begin to tell you how many times, especially at the federal level, you would go in as a lobbyist and the lobbyist would say, that's great, but I need some political cover. This is a very controversial issue. And I'm with you, but I need the support. So I need to hear from my constituents. And that's when your grassroots can be used to give them the political cover. It can be used to help persuade them to your position if they're not already there. But those constituents, the people who actually have the ability to vote for them in the next election, and the people who they officially serve, that is where the accountability is to those elected officials. They're elected by the constituents. They're accountable to the constituents. And right now in 2020, just 2 weeks after, is it 2 weeks? It's not even 2 weeks. It's, I guess, 2 weeks after the election. It sounds almost, I don't know, kind of Pollyanna-ish to even say that, you know, that's the accountability there is, but that's really what the accountability is. All of the other campaign stuff gets in the way of us remembering that that is really what it's all about. It's the electeds are there to address the needs of their constituents. So those constituents weighing in carry a greater voice than a lobbyist can going into the office. That said, it's not a substitute for, it's just an in addition to. And one of the things I think is important to also point out for those of you who don't know a lot about government relations is so much more than lobbying. If you think government relations is about lobbying and only lobbying, then we need to talk further about all of the other things that are part of government relations. And hopefully we will cover some of those as I start to answer some of your questions. The when does GR happen? When is it important? Well, there are some things in life we can plan. And there are some things that in life we know we can plan and count on that timing as being the appropriate timing. We know Christmas falls on December 31st. We know New Year's is on January 1. We know Thanksgiving is the third Thursday. What we don't know is when a piece of legislation is going to necessarily start to get the attention of legislators and regulate, or a policy is going to get to the interest of particular regulators, or when a court case might be filed that can impact issues that are important to you. So the when is anytime. And the when, frankly, is often not predictable. It sometimes can be predictable if you're monitoring things, but it often takes place at the last minute. And I would recommend that all of you, especially those who are executive directors of organizations, are spending your time, doing your job as EDs to be looking out at that environmental scan and looking at what's coming down the pike, because oftentimes that gives you the best opportunity to shape the issue in a way that puts you in a proactive role and also puts you in a place where you can impact it with greater strength. So let's look at the where. Where does GR happen? GR happens not just in state and federal capitals across the provincial capitals across the world and in city halls, but it also happens where you and your members live, where you and your members work, where you and your members shop, where they go for information. It actually also happens in their churches, and I'm not talking about, you know, a pulling together and mixing church and state as much as I am that the issue of how you might be going to church and your legislator might be going to the same church, and therefore you see them there. So GR happens everywhere. And it's important. And, you know, who is it? Ms. Bo, Damien, is that you? You know, it's also important from a purchasing and a sales standpoint, because GR is happening where people are buying and selling their goods and where they're needing to get the raw materials to help make the goods that they're involved with. So, and then the who obviously, because of the name of this, is everyone at your organization. And it's not just talking about the staff. I'm talking about your leadership, your volunteer leadership, your board, your governance structure, all of the staff of the organization, and every single one of the members. As we all know, we don't exist. We exist because our members exist. Our members don't come to us because there's, you know, they come to us because there's a need. So we got to kind of remember which comes first, and that is the members are always first. So that's the who. And I would also say that the hardest part about all of this is breaking down the silos and making sure that you're coordinating across departments and across staff and across volunteer members. And that coordination is going to be critical no matter what you do. The how. GR includes policy research. I'm just naming a few things. Policy research, selection of technology, the use of data for position support and for targeting audiences. It's for GR includes monitoring the political landscape. It includes member recruitment, member education, member engagement. It includes messaging and communications. It includes fundraising and budgets. And it includes contract and vendor management. Now, let me ask, would you have thought that GR included all of those things before I said some of them? Okay, Mary, I see you kind of going, no. What was sort of a surprise on that one for you?
Contract management.
Contract management.
Yeah.
Does anybody here have any software, GR software? Okay, that's contract management or vendor management. Does anybody have a contract lobbyist? That's contract and vendor management. Does anybody have, There's a lot of things. Does anybody plan a meeting? Okay, contract management, your meeting should include GR. Okay. So the GR is part of this everywhere. So I want to go back and I want to go to your questions, and I'm going to start with the executive director role. And if I have this correct, we have Bill from ABC. We have Lisa Marie with the Cherokee Educational Foundation of C3. We have Damien Misbo. We have Val with the chiropractic folks. We have Mary with the Rheumatology Research Foundation. And of course, we have Wendy as the head of GSAE. Curious, Wendy, do you guys do any advocacy at all, or do you get involved in any government relations issues in Georgia?
The only time we are Switzerland, because so often our folks are on opposite sides of things that go in front of the state legislature. We did have one example that we would have gotten involved with when some certification changes were coming up. Val, I can't remember if y'all were going to be affected by them, but our nurses and vets and it was coming out of the Secretary of State's office, and we were poised to jump in, and then it got resolved. So other than that, we've got a couple of folks that are down at the Capitol that pay attention only if it starts affecting all associations, as opposed to, we don't get involved with the immigration stuff, we don't get involved with the e-verify, any of those things. And we've really, particularly this year, we've focused in on ASAE's policy statements around CARES, and the PPP, as well as the SBA loans, and getting that information into the hands of our folks.
Excellent.
So we've been a conduit, but not on the state level as much.
Okay, that sounds good. As a member, I left DC 2 years ago to come to Raleigh, and I am an active member at your sister organization, AENC, and we are in the same boat. We are Switzerland here too. We don't get involved in anything. There was something that I identified during session, and another friend from the architects identified it, and we share offices actually. So it was funny because we were able to kind of talk it through and bring it to the attention of the leadership. And while we didn't get involved in its passage, we went out of our way, the AENC went out of their way to do some education on this issue because it was a tax issue that was going to affect all associations. So for the EDs in the group, let me go to your questions. Let's start at the beginning. First, I've got Bill. Okay, Bill has no internal person at ABC, so everybody pitches in. First, I would say to you, at the national level, Mike Bellarmine has done an amazing job since he came on board. I can tell, and you know this, but for those that are not part of ABC, when Mike came on board, one of the things that he did was he really took apart the entire organization and he said, why is GR important to us? And what should we be doing to tie it closer to our membership, to our staff, and to our chapters, to our state chapters? And I know that I've worked with some of the folks here in North Carolina from ABC, and they are a very politically active organization. Now, if you don't have anyone in person, I think it's important to rely on good support from the outside that you're probably already using in your lobbying. But lobbyists are, again, only one type of individual. And many lobbyists are well-versed in all of the different aspects, but some of them are really just lobbyists. But with regards to the Georgia races, I would say this to you guys, it's so amazing that we're doing this today, because these Georgia races are going to be very critical. I mean, I would think that all of you understand that if those races both races go one way or the other, it's going to change the balance of the US Senate. Okay. And it's going to be a most interesting time. And the other thing is too, if things go even, then what happens is the vice president becomes the tie-breaking vote. And we know that the vice president will be a Democrat. Although everybody but Donald Trump knows that. That's a different story though. And it was interesting because I was on I don't know if you know who Charlie Cook is, but Charlie is a well-known and very highly respected political person, and happened to be on an event with him speaking this afternoon. And he actually talked about these races. And his perception is that the races are not going to split. His perception is that they're going to go one way or the other. My prediction is that they'll both going to go Republican, which will make Lisa Marie happy. But that is what I think is going to happen. So what do you need to do now, Bill? Here's what I would be doing. I would be directing your people to the websites of both of those. Do you have a PAC, a Georgia PAC?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Okay. Have you endorsed, or are you going to endorse, or did you endorse in the general election?
Yeah, we did endorse the Purdue, but Loeffler we did not, because it was Loeffler and Collins running against each other, so we could not do that. So we're going to send out a press release, for her as well. But yes, that's very important, just as much as money.
Yes, yes.
More so is to endorse.
Is the endorsement.
Totally
okay. So you are endorsing in each of the races this time around. And it's important that you tell your people that. It's important that you give your people, I don't know if you have a GOTV, a Get Out the Vote part of your website, but it's very easy to put up some of those resources. And one of the resources I would put up is links. I would put information about the date of the election. I would put up information about where they can find out where to vote, because I don't know if all the polling places are open or if it's just partial, but it's important that they have that information, because if it is only partial, then they're going to go to one place and they're not going to be able to vote, and then they get frustrated. I don't know if Georgia is going to allow them to vote early in this at all, but all of those resources are important for them to have in their hands. I would also put the information, link them to the websites of the candidates that you have endorsed. Now, with that said, I don't know how controversial your membership becomes with regards to give me both sides. And if that's the case, you may want to give them the race of A versus B. We've endorsed A. Here are each of their websites to learn more. Or you may want to, if you have done a survey of their positions on the issues that are important to your organization, give them some of that information. As you are doing, whoever your communications person is. Amy, do you do communications or do you do certification? Did you tell me?
I help out a little bit with it, but no, we have a person who does communications.
Okay, your communications person should be totally on board right now with this. They should be planning mailings between now and the election that is going to give them all of these pieces of information about when they vote, who they can potentially vote for, how they can vote, where they can vote. Okay, and you're going to want to start to ramp up those messages as you get closer and closer. So it's really important that you do that. Now, the other thing is, would you be open to potentially doing a online debate or an online forum for each race? But if you were, keep in mind you have to involve both candidates. Okay. Now, this is where ABC National may be able to help you. They're probably much more well-versed in all of the intricacies of the federal law, but I would consider putting together a Georgia forum of the candidates and a virtual forum, and your folks can ask questions. Now, you can get them to ask questions in advance, submit them in advance, or you can get them at the time. Obviously, you just want to be really careful about the fact that the questions are not doesn't put anybody on the defensive. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. Okay. Next on the EDs, Lisa Marie. You apparently know a little bit about the political world. Possibly enough to make you just dangerous, right? You're laughing. I don't know why Wendy is laughing so hard.
I do.
Why is Wendy laughing so hard?
I'm laughing because Lisa Marie was both the volunteer president of the Georgia PTA, and so she was very involved in several advocacy efforts that were successful in the state of Georgia. She also serves on National PTA's legislative team.
Okay.
So she's more than a little dangerous, and she's more than a little informed.
Okay, but the beauty of it is you also understand the GR side from those volunteer efforts, and the GR and the political are very different. They do overlap at times, but they are distinct in some respects.
I agree with that, Ann, and I would go further to say that it's very important as a membership-driven association for us all to remember that we represent a wide body of members that have differing points of view. And to take a stand politically, like Bill and Amy are thinking ABC is going to do, can sometimes alienate members who feel differently about a political candidate. I think you guys can provide a service in breaking down the differences, like Ann was talking about. The greater service to your members is to educate them, whether you're a 501c3, 5, or 6. Educate them on the differences in the points of view that people have, because there's good and bad in every political candidate. One of the greatest things that we can offer our members is the opportunity to help them just click a link and order an absentee ballot. If they get an absentee ballot in the mail and they choose to vote in person, just inform them that they can take it with them and exchange it for a live vote. But it ensures that if anything happens in this pandemic with sickness or work, that they can still have the opportunity to have their voice heard. They can drop those mail-in ballots up to the day of election at their county voter registration site in a safe box, but it can be exchanged for an in-person vote or a vote the day of the election. You don't take anything away from folks by having them register at this time for an absentee ballot. And I think if you provide the service to your members of breaking down the difference in the candidates, especially ABC, a company that operates in that paradigm, there are big differences in the candidates for how it's going to impact the members that you represent. But I don't think it's a good idea. It can be, especially as divided as this country was, it was very much a 50-50 vote, as we've seen, and we've seen all kinds of crazy on both sides. And it's our job to support our members, no matter how crazy their point of view.
You're absolutely
and it's crazy
correct.
on both sides. So I think it's important to give them the information, provide them a link to an absentee ballot, and make sure that you explain to them, because a lot of people don't understand that absentee ballot doesn't mean that it's done. If you can't vote in person, you're going to be out of town for travel, or you're sick, then you have the opportunity to cast your vote still and be heard. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ann.
Great job. Great job. You could do this yourself. I would say to you that that's exactly why I suggested, Bill, a Get Out the Vote program. And it's probably wise to set up, and what I usually do is when I do these for clients, I go from election day back. And just as Lisa Marie was mentioning some of the deadlines, take those deadlines, and those are the messaging that you want to be giving to people in the days going up to that. You want to start with all of it, and then you want to each time focus on the different messaging that's relevant to those particular upcoming deadlines. But yes, and by all means, again, you have to know your membership. But yes, I do think that even though you tell them we're endorsing, you give them both sides. So Lisa Marie.
And can I ask one more quick thing? I think it's important for us to let our members know that even if they didn't vote in the presidential election, they can still register to vote up until December 5th, whether they voted in the last election or not. There's a misnomer that people think if I didn't vote, I can't vote for the runoff. And we are still accepting applications through December the 5th for people to participate in this election. And I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, you're great. I love it. I love it. Thank you. You mentioned COVID and the impact of COVID. And somebody else had mentioned that also. COVID has been interesting from a government relations standpoint. One of the things that I found happened back in March was all of my clients, because of COVID and the shutdowns, and because it was primarily handled state by state rather than with a particular national policy, we ended up having to kind of stop and put on pause all of the issues we were working with. And we had to really pivot to COVID. What might be relevant in the kinds of COVID changes that were going on, whether it was unemployment compensation laws, and I'm not even talking about just the $600, I'm talking about things like what it might cost the state, what was state budgets going to start looking like, the testing, it was PPP, it was loans for organizations, it was helping get them through the loan applications, it was for clients in the medical field with licenses. You may, who is chiropractic again? Mary, are you chiro? Okay, Val, you're chiro. But licensing issues that were going on across borders, that people could, go across a border, and if they had a good license in one state, they could practice in another. I mean, the state legislation that was being filed daily, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bills when I looked at everything across the country. And it was a lot, but there were certain buckets of things that they fell into, and everything changed because we suddenly had to pay attention to what was not their issues, but we had to pay attention to this whole new set of issues and focus on that. The good thing about that for me, who handles several clients, is that all of a sudden I was handling the same thing for everyone. And just, you know, telling them which buckets were more important for them. So that's kind of how COVID started to change things. Let me go now to, Val, what was your issue here? I'm trying to find yours. Val was, oh, no capital day, great issue. Everybody's doing fly-ins virtually now, and that's okay. So you can do a virtual fly-in. I have been trying to sell a virtual fly-in to clients for years. And it didn't become popular until COVID. So thank you, COVID. But what I would say to you is it's important for your people to establish and nurture relationships with their lawmakers. And that can be done, you know, I'll tell you about Capitol Hill Days. Hill Days are what I call a first date, okay? Whether they're at the state level or at the federal level, you bring your people in, you match them up with, from a constituent standpoint, with the people they should be meeting with. And you send them off, you primp them. You tell them what the issues are. You tell them what they should be talking about, the kind of conversation they should be having. So they primp for their date. And then you send them off to the date. And then what happens? Nothing. Until Hill Day next year, okay? And all they do is go on a series of first dates. And I can tell you, we've all gone on a first date or 2 or 3 or 400. And a first date is not a relationship. Dates happen in all kinds of environments. You don't go to the same restaurant for the same dinner, the same night of every week. You know, you got to go meet the folks, you go away for a weekend, you go to the movies, you go horseback riding, you know, whatever you do on your date. And dates happen in different ways. And if you're going to have a relationship, which is really what grassroots and Hill Days are all about, then you have to teach them how to date. Not have first dates, but how to date, okay? And sometimes somebody recognized, maybe it was you who said, or maybe it was Heather who said this, I can't remember, said, we don't want to wear them out too much. You know, we don't want to use our grassroots so much that we wear them out. Well, you know what? It's kind of like having dates. If I start to date somebody and I'm seeing too much of them, whoa, I'm seeing too much of you. I gotta back off. Like, you know, twice a week is enough until we get to another place in our relationship, you know, and that's what you have to, as sort of the conscience, you have to say to them, when is enough enough? When is enough too much? And when is it not enough? So you have to be feeling that out. I also am not a believer in the grassroots action alert that gets put up for the sake of being put up. And I go to your website 3 months from now and it's still there. Action alerts are meant to serve a purpose when an issue decision or types of decisions about the issue or legislation are imminent or could be imminent, or you're making them imminent. And it's important that action alerts be there so that people understand there's an urgency there. It's not about the how long can we keep it up there, or not even sometimes about how many people do we get to respond. It's more about what's the right timing. Because if immigration reform is the biggest issue at the top of everyone's agenda, and you're trying to tell them about a little chiropractic tweak when they're not working on healthcare, you missed your boat. That's not when your policy window is going to open. So you want to make sure that you time things in a right way. The other thing is make sure your advocates know how to communicate and ask for meetings. Make sure they're comfortable with this new technology. Make sure that they feel comfortable asking for a meeting and understanding if they can see a legislator at a, we're not really having state fairs or things like that anymore, but those are the kinds of opportunities that can exist. If it's a congressional level, you can usually see, depending on the software you're using, where the town hall meetings are that are being held by federal legislators. But if you're generally at the state level, I would make sure that you try to create a key contact in each one of your House and Senate districts, because that key contact is somebody who can talk to their friends, neighbors, fellow chiropractors, easy for me to say, in the community and say, look, this is kind of what we're needing and this is why. And before you know it, it's kind of that word of mouth and say, you know what, I really appreciate all the help you've given. We're going to sit tight for a little while because this isn't the time. But those are the kinds of things you want to do to make sure your people are being used at the right time, in the right ways, and are being communicated with by the right people. And having a key contact in each district will help you tremendously because it helps disseminate the word. Who did I not get to? Wendy, always federal, Jenny, how COVID, the landscape. I think I answered that, Jenny, with, how we really just stopped everything and it was all COVID all the time. Mary was how to connect. You're a C3, Mary. So you can educate. And the thing that I would be doing is, to the extent that you have shared resources between your C3 and C6, I would try to utilize and have as much silo breakdown as possible to communicate. The other thing is, if your foundation is doing things in a particular member's district, or if you're doing something that that there are certain members who they or their families have been affected by rheumatoid type illnesses and such, use those opportunities, because that they want to hear about that. Those are things that are near and dear to them. But I do think it's important that when you, I don't know if you do a golf tournament or, we can still do golf tournaments, by the way. If you do anything like that, or if you do a holiday fundraiser, maybe you could even create a contest, county by county, and who can generate the most X. And then you let your legislators know that we are so excited, and we pitted all of our members against each other, and we were able to raise this much in these counties where we have these major hospitals or major treatment of rheumatoid diseases. That's the kind of thing that you kind of start thinking outside of the box. And you may not do the interaction per se. You may have your C6 people do that interaction, but you can be there to educate. You could be there to communicate. You're just not there to advocate.
Right. Yes,
Okay.
We definitely do Hill briefings and things like that. So we do educate, but I love the idea of leveraging more than just saying the economic impact in your district is X, based on our funding or NIH funding, but actually saying we've engaged your constituencies in this way.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing to do, because they love that. And I would really take a look. I don't know if you have an intern maybe that can do this. Take a look at every legislator. What do they do for a living? What do their wives do for a living? What did their father or father-in-law or mother or mother-in-law do for a living? Because those are the ways you're going to get keys to resonate. You're going to have talking points that resonate with them. And the other thing, this is for everybody right now who does GR, everybody between now and January should be welcoming the freshman members of the Georgia Assembly and the Georgia Senate. Everybody should be doing that. Welcome them, whether you endorsed them or not. welcome them to the legislature, let them know who you are, let them know about your membership. That's the time to share the fact sheet about your membership, okay?
I love the idea. So we definitely look for like members of Congress who are physicians or have a medical background, but I love the idea of looking for family connections that may be educators or physicians or have a research background.
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
That's really critical. And you know, the other thing is too, there may be opportunities to work with some of the hospitals that have significant practices in those areas, as well as with the universities, which I'm sure you already do. But that's another opportunity if you're doing something or giving dollars to a local university or doing a project at the local university. Make sure you send a copy of the report to the legislator. You know, even have one of your folks meet with them and say, we just wanted you to let you know this is one of the things that we're doing. We know this is important to you. You know about the large wing at the local hospital or at the university hospital. Those are ways that you can connect that you know, you're not just going to people and saying, I want this and I need this right now. You're letting them know that you're good corporate citizens and your members are good corporate citizens, whether they're in a profession or whether they're in an industry, and that they're out there doing really good work in the community. And that's something that those guys really appreciate and want to know about. Damien, we've talked. Lisa Marie, I think we talked. Julia, you are working. Is Julia still with us? Where's Julia? Julia. There you are. The copyright, and I know we're at 6:02, so I'll do this quickly, okay? So bear with me because we went over a little. First of all, congratulations on being at 3 years and maybe being close. Congratulations also, it's a new Congress coming in. I assume this is federal legislation. Yes. So
yes, it's called the CASE Act. The CASE Act.
Well, congratulations. You know what happens now? Do
Yeah.
not $200. Do not pass go. Go back to point one. So hopefully your sponsor has committed already to refiling the legislation. At which point you also have to start shopping for more and repeat co-sponsors. Okay. You also have to make sure leadership will continue to move this forward. Okay. And so, you know, you have a good track record. Unfortunately, at 2 years, unless it's going to happen in the lame duck, and the lame duck is called what it is because it's lame and it quacks. But the reality is, if it's not happening in lame duck, you're going to start all over again. We talked a little bit about not wearing out your grassroots folks, and I think you might have picked up some tips there. So that might be helpful for you. But I would say that it's about to start all over again. And what I would also say to you is that as good as you might have been with your grassroots folks, are you educating them on the process? Do they know that it's about to start all over again? And that can be really distressing for them because they have worked really hard for you. And the other thing I would say is if you could arrange a virtual Hill Day, that could be a really wonderful opportunity to engage them together and create some real excitement around the issue again. And obviously I wouldn't plan on doing that till at least April, especially in a year like this. There's something else I wanted to say to everybody. Issue education is critical. Recruitment is critical. For certification and education people, one of the things I would also say to you is don't forget that government relations, often it's not just legislative action, but it's regulatory action, or it could be judicial action. And if you are doing an education or certification program, the builders and contractors in particular would have an interest here. You've got changes to the construction codes or changes in permitting requirements, or just somebody tweaked a little bit in the roofing law, you know, suddenly, or some little thing in the plumbing laws. suddenly it really has to be communicated back. So it's important that those things are being woven in. And that's another way that if you do have a GR person, but you're not in GR, to be communicating. And then the last thing I would want to say is that in communications, if your organization is doing communications, working with an agency or creating messaging or creating a content calendar, and they're not coordinating with GR, then you have missed so much opportunity. I think the bottom line here is that it is everybody's job, and you have to really break down silos. One thing too, it occurred to me that for the EDs, one of the ways you can help your staff is to hold a lunch and learn, a virtual lunch and learn, where people talk about what the different things that they're doing, or even the GR people talk about something they're involved in, and the GR person can say, how can you in technology help me? I'm going to be buying some new software. I'm going to need to zip match my data to the to match to people to legislators. Do we have that capacity in our AMS? You know, it's silly things like that, but they're not so silly. And also helping everybody else understand the timing, that GR is something that is not predictable. So if you ask for a report from your database, you needed it yesterday, not a week from now. So that's all I've got to say. I don't know if Jenny, if you want to, I'm happy to take some more questions if people have them. But we're past 6, so people may want to go off to their evening activity.
You have a wine tasting to get to.
I know, but I don't need to be there till 6:30, and it's 5 minutes from my house. So
perfect. Well, yes. Does anyone else have questions? I'm just excited to hear that you'll be joining us in Chattanooga too, so we can continue the conversations there, because I feel like you have a lot of great information to share, and thanks for the way you addressed everyone's specific kind of concerns and questions was really helpful. So
feel free also to give everyone my contact information. Anybody has any questions, you want to call, pick my brain, I'm happy to chat with you. Okay. I love the association world, and I think having national associations is great, and I've worked for several of them, and they do a wonderful job, but the rubber really has a tendency to meet the road when you get to the state level, and frankly, even more so at the local level. But you guys are the ones that really have the opportunity to change policy.
Well, I feel inspired to do so now. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate talking to everyone.
Yep, I'll definitely share I'll send an email and share Anne's contact info and a follow-up. So thank you.